Thank you very much for keeping us company. We are moving straight to the interview segment, Engine Behind the Bar. Tonight, I am joined by an advocate of the High Court. Her name is Eunice Nganga, and I have to admit that it's not very often that we get to interview advocates on the program, but thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Who is Eunice Nganga before we get into the nitty-gritties?
I'd say Eunice Nganga is an advocate of the High Court, is an entrepreneur, is a mentor, and is very passionate about legal civic education, getting the basic law to the ordinary Kenyan. And I'm driven by the need to see justice happen and to have the ordinary Kenyan access justice. That is basically how I describe Eunice Nganga in brief.
There is always that talk about access to justice, just like you said. We will get into that. And we just want to know, where did you grow up? Which school did you attend? And which universities? And in terms of entrepreneurship, what kind of business are you in? And how are you making a difference in the society? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Sinyarare, Cherangani. And then I grew up in Nairobi. I started schooling in Mukarara Primary School in Waithaka before moving to Gituto Primary School, one of the best primary schools around the country. Then I joined Loreto High School, Limuru. And then I proceeded to do my tourism management course at Trans-Eastern Airlines Aviation College. And then I did my LLB at Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Then went to the Kenya School of Law, of course. Currently, it's the only school that teaches for the bar. So finished my bar and got admitted as an advocate of the High Court. So that's my brief journey.
It's really interesting to note that in the present Kenya, we have women who are coming out, going for that book and reading and making a future for themselves. It is changing the narrative. And there is this debate about the need to have women equally represented in legislative assemblies, from the county assemblies even to parliament, even though we've seen that has not really gone down so well. But when it comes to employment, even if you look at the cabinet secretaries, women are up there, they are represented. So why the push to have more women elected into parliament?
The thing with women is that they're passionate about what they do. I'm not saying men are not passionate, but you look at countries like Rwanda that have very high percentages of women representation in parliament, and the difference is visible for everyone to see. So historically, we are a patriarchal society. So women did not have the same playing field for elections and campaigns as the men. And currently, I'd say there's efforts to make sure there's equal representation, or there's a larger number of women in legislative assemblies, but we are not there yet. So I support Dr. Ekuru Aukot's proposal to have our laws changed so that we just elect one woman and one man to parliament. And then this whole debate about 2/3 gender rule and what we can do and increasing the seats is done away with once and for all. If we just elect one woman, one man, we will never need to debate on whether we should nominate, whether we should increase them, and we'll keep the budget low. Yeah, so I support Dr. Ekuru Aukot's proposal 100% to have equal representation, and then you will see the difference. In areas where you have women in leadership, you clearly see a difference, because women are mothers, they nurture, they think about children and future generations much more than men do.
And in terms of education, you have gone to school, you have your degree, and you have your master's. There are so many girls who are yet to achieve this kind of a status in the society. Do you think that our education system really favors the girls?
Not just our education system, our entire setup is pitted against girls, because you look at most rural areas, girls drop out because of simple things like access to sanitary towels. That is a natural process that makes girls not go to school. So apart from just the education system not being very supportive of girls and their needs, just the nature of a girl growing up puts her at a disadvantage through school. And if we could sort out those issues that make the girl child less advantaged than the boy, then we can go after the system. First, we sort out the small issues that are directly affecting the girl. Right. Make sure they have their sanitary towels, make sure they have underwear, make sure they have soaps and oil, because those are issues of image and self-esteem that affect girls in schools. If we can sort that, then we'll help them reach like the same level playing field as the boys.
I watched an Indian documentary about an employer saying that he'd rather employ women because a mother's money is the family's money. But a man's money
is his money.
Is his money. Do you think we need to adopt such kind of a policy in the country?
Not exactly. For me, is girls really do not need to be given so much. The only thing they need is a little bit of support. Like I've said, if you sort out their basic needs, those girls in the rural areas, if you ensure they have their sanitary towels, you ensure they have oil and soap, that's all. They'll take care of everything else. Girls are naturally, I think women have got some inner strength, much more greater than men do. Because you look at what girls and women do compared to what men are able to bear naturally, women, I'd say, are the strongest sex.
All right. Yeah. You are an advocate of the High Court. There is a lot of politics, but before we get to that, we spoke about access to justice. What's your assessment of that particular aspect of life, especially in Kenya? Are Kenyans, normal Kenyans, the common mwananchi, do they have that access to justice?
I'd say no. We have come a long way to a place where people now, even in that rural setting, understand courts, not just places where you go when you have a land dispute. At least we've moved away from there, which is a big step. People do understand now that you can go to court when you have other disputes. But our biggest problem is how close are the courts, even just infrastructure-wise, to that ordinary Kenyan who does not have 100 bus fare to go to court. Let's begin there. Then there is no free service in the courts. So if you take a dispute to court, the first thing you have to pay for before you pay an advocate to represent you is the court fee, the filing fee. Now, there are pauper applications that you can make to be considered a pauper, and so you don't pay. But is that knowledge with the people? And that's why, for me, access to justice begins with legal civic education. And I'm doing the little bit that I can on that. I go to the villages, I speak in mother tongue, and I try to explain, there's this right, there's this you can do, there's this other thing you can do. And I speak a lot also about ADR, the need to just resolve disputes amicably. That's one. Number two, I try to explain the law, the basic law, because if we know what is going to happen eventually in court, then you don't go in the first place. So I try to explain the basic law on succession, family, and then the difference between what is civil and what's criminal law, and try and see if people will understand and then avoid the need to go to court in the first place. And we have that already anchored in the Constitution and in various laws that people should try and resolve disputes amicably. But the starting point is, do they have the knowledge of what the law is.
All right.
So we begin there.
I was reading a couple of articles that you have written. There is one where you were talking about the need to have reforms. The law needs to be amended in such a way that it suits the common mwananchi. What are some of these areas that you think needs to be, these gaps that need to be sealed so that Kenyans get that particular thing that they want, especially in law?
The first thing I was thinking about is devolvement. We devolved the executive right to the locations. We have devolved legislature up to the wards. But where is the judiciary? Yet it's the third arm of government. The judiciary is at the counties. And in some counties, we don't have high courts, which means someone who requires access to the high court has to travel much further than a county to get access to the courts. So for me, the first place to begin is the Small Claims Courts. The Small Claims Courts Act was legislated in 2016, but up to now, we do not have the small claims courts established. For me, if we could start there, because the nature of those courts is such that they are very informal. They are not required to follow the evidence, the law of evidence and the procedural laws that require a lot of back and forth and application this and that and complicated language. They are actually supposed to be conducted informally. So for me, I'd say, let's devolve the small claims courts. Let's not wait until we have the infrastructure in place, but let's have, I was talking of mobile adjudicators who move right down to the locations and wards on certain days and listen to the people informally, make decisions that are binding. And also, I was thinking we propose increasing the amount of the money allocated for, we call it pecuniary jurisdiction, for the small claims courts from the 200,000 currently to about 2 million. So that all those cases down there, people are killing each other for 60 shillings, 100 shillings, 1,000 shillings. Let those cases be decided informally by an adjudicator from the court and sorted out. And let people know that the court is near them so that they don't lose hope and just kill each other.
Okay. So let's talk about the Law Society of Kenya, a society that you are a member. There's an article that you wrote talking about LSK having a stronger hold on advocates, that it is mandatory for every advocate who is admitted to the bar to join LSK. Of course, you've expressed your opinion about this, you're opposed to it, and you would want a situation where LSK amends its own constitution to allow advocates the right to choose whether or not they want to join that particular organization. Why this tussle with LSK?
Thank you, and I'm surprised by this question because I wasn't prepared for it. But since this is my conviction, let me just talk about it.
Yes. It's
a matter that I took to court. Because when I read the Constitution, first of all, when I read the law, I got revelations, things I didn't know before, and I started to understand, oh, so I have this right and that right. So for me, when I read the Bill of Rights, I interpret it in terms of what we have now. And if there's anything that's wrong, then I'm up to challenge it. So for the Law Society of Kenya, the first thing is I read Article 36, and it says clearly, no one shall be compelled to belong to an association of any kind. That's the Constitution. It has no proviso. It doesn't say except. Then, if you look at Article 25, anybody who wishes to be an arms bearer, join the police, the army, is restricted as to what rights they can have. And it's listed 1, 2, 3, 4 clearly that if you join the army, if you join the police, then these rights for you will be limited. So for me, if it was intended that the right for association for advocates had to be limited because of the nature of their work or just because of choice of profession, there would have been no more difficult thing to do than include them there. That's one. Number two, Article 24 gives the provisions by which, is the provision by which a right can be limited. Article 24.1 states that there has to be legislation limiting the right.
So LSK, by the virtue that every advocate is compelled to join the society, it means that it is in breach of the Constitution. That is what you're saying.
Yes, correct.
Do you harbor plans to vie for the presidency of LSK?
Not at all. I'm actually a business person. I don't know if we reached there yet. But
let's talk about it then, because clearly you are not pro-LSK.
I'm not.
What businesses are you in then?
I'm pro-LSK, but I'm not pro being compelled to belong there for one reason. I'm a business person. I need things to make economic sense. Like if you ask me to pay money, it must make to me either logical sense or economic sense. Now, the payments that LSK asks people to pay makes no economic sense, makes no logical sense. There's no reason why, first, you compel me to belong to an association whose ideas I don't subscribe to.
But LSK fights for the right of lawyers.
No, not for my rights.
I remember when lawyer Willie Kimani and his client and the taxi driver were killed, LSK was in the front line saying that there has to be justice. Justice has to be served.
Now, that's good. That's good. But can I have a choice as to who fights for my rights?
All right,
I became an advocate. You do not have to compel me to fight for my rights. I can choose who I want to fight for my rights.
Can someone opt out of
No,
LSK?
no. According to the current law, once you become an advocate of the High Court, you are compelled from the day you sign the roll to be a member of the LSK. You cannot opt out. You cannot practice without being a member. And for me, that is a travesty of justice.
So you can check in you cannot check in anytime you want, but you cannot check in and check out.
No, you can't.
All right. Briefly, what business are you in apart from what you practice as a lawyer?
I am a travel agent, an IATA qualified travel agent.
Yes.
So I take people around the world and bring people to Kenya. Bringing people to Kenya is what brings me more pleasure. I enjoy explaining about the Masai Mara, Amboseli, Samburu, our pristine beaches and beautiful hotels, and our hospitality. And Kenya is indeed a very beautiful country to sell. I feel proud being an ambassador of Kenya.
Kenya is a beautiful. In fact, on Thursdays we do have a segment called Magical Scenes.
Right.
Probably you need to talk to Irene Muchumodim, the presenter of that particular program. But I also do understand that you engage in charity, philanthropy.
Yes.
Briefly, tell us more.
Yes, I'm a philanthropist, but probably it's just by default, because I struggled going through school right from primary school. I'm a Harambee student. That's how I joined Loreto High School Limuru. So when I was a little able, I thought as a way of giving back, I could give back by supporting students. Because for me, I could not repay back those who took me to school. They saw the potential, they sacrificed, and they took me to school. So I give scholarships to deserving students, brilliant, deserving students.
Right.
That's what I do.
All right.
Yeah.
Since we talk about the engine behind the power, what car do you drive?
I drive a Mitsubishi. I've always driven Mitsubishis. Right now, I drive a Mitsubishi Lancer.
All right.
It's not by choice. I just end up having a Mitsubishi.
So if you were to choose the type of, the brand of a car to be, for example, if there was such a thing, you would choose a Mitsubishi?
No, I wouldn't. I think I would choose a Land Rover. Off-road, on-road, in the mud, in the flood, on the stones, desert, sand. That's what I would want to be.
That's a really good one.
Yes.
Someone would have gone for a Ferrari, but since you've chosen a Land Rover, it means that you're a true Kenyan.
I am.
Eunice, thank you very much for coming on the program tonight.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.